Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So we will continue our discussion on economy. We are in the module International Organization. Okay, so we started off with WTO. Now if you are attending this session for the first time, what I'll do is I'll go for a quick recap of what all things that we have covered under WTO. Okay, so basically today I want to discuss about Doha development round, one of the meeting of WTO. We have discussed about Singapore issues, various meetings of or ministerial conferences. So this is one of the most important ministerial conference, Doha Ministerial Conference. We will discuss that in detail in this particular session. But before that, if you are attending this for the first time, I'll just give you some background idea so that it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so otherwise you can get all those previous videos in StudyIQ itself. So we started off with GATT, right? General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So GATT came into existence from 1st of Jan 1948. See, in 1947 there was a meeting of 23 countries and it was decided that there should be a agreement to promote world trade by reducing the tariff barriers. So GATT came into existence with the objective of promoting world trade by reducing the trade barriers. So the objective is basically to promote world trade by reducing tariff barriers. Okay, then various rounds were there. So like 1, 2, 3, 4 various rounds were conducted. It's all about meetings. So 7 rounds, then 8th round. So if you see first 7 rounds of GATT, it was all about similar to its objective. The discussions were basically related to reducing tariff barriers. Okay, so from non-tariff barriers to tariff barriers and reducing the tariff barriers to minimum level. So and also you can promote world trade. So that was the objective and that was the discussions in the first 7 meetings. But if you see the 8th meeting, this is slightly different to the 7 meetings. Okay, what is the difference here? See, the difference here is it is popularly known as Uruguay round. Okay, so the difference was not only trade related issues, some new issues actually have been picked up by the developed countries. What are the new issues? The issues related to investment, the issues related to intellectual property, agriculture issues, environmental issues, etc. have been picked up by the developed countries. Okay, now in this round they were not able to, that means developing countries and developed countries, they were not reaching any consensus, and this continued from 1986 to 94. Then in 94, the then Director General of GATT, that is Mr. Arthur Dunkel, he come up with a draft final act, which is also known as Dunkel draft. What he did is he concluded this round by incorporating all the discussions of this round which has been done so far, right? So he incorporated all those discussions of developed countries and also the genuine concerns of developing countries. Okay, and he come up with a draft final act, and which was put to sign in the next meeting, that was in Marrakesh. And developing countries also signed this because they had no other option. Either you have to sign it or you have to opt out of the organization. So Marrakesh agreement is what is known for. Okay, so it is actually Marrakesh agreement or Dunkel draft or draft final act. Now, one of the most important proposition or provision of the Dunkel draft is actually the name and nature of the organization will change. So you will see here GATT changed to WTO. So WTO came into existence with this Marrakesh agreement or Dunkel draft or the draft final act of GATT. So the name of the organization changed. Then second was nature will change. Now how is it going to change? That you will understand it clearly when we are discussing about WTO. Okay, see, we have already done that discussion. Half of the discussion we have done, we have talked about all important agreements of WTO. So you might have already understood that. How the nature is going to change? Till then it was trade only. Now more and more issues will be picked up, like investment issues, intellectual property issues, agriculture, environment. All these issues will be picked up. Now if you remember, we have said that in GATT it was just a loose agreement. Okay, but when it comes to WTO, it is going to be a very formal organization. When it comes to GATT, there is no judicial power. In WTO, when it comes to WTO, there is judicial power. There is a dispute settlement board. That means if a member country is violating any provisions of WTO or violation of WTO norms, the affected country can sue them in the dispute settlement board. Okay, we will come to that when we discuss about agreements. Okay. So then we have discussed about objectives of WTO. We have also talked about principles of WTO, the most favored nation concept that we have discussed. We then discussed about the structure of WTO, where we have discussed in detail about ministerial conference. In brief, I have told you, and I've told you in detail, we will take up separate discussion. Okay, so because Singapore issues is very important, that need a separate discussion. Doha development round is separate, that is also very important. Okay, and then Bali Ministerial Conference, Nairobi Ministerial Conferences, all these we will be separately discussing. So in that we have just discussed about the Ministerial Conference. This is the highest decision making body of WTO. Every 2 years they meet. Okay, then in structure we have also talked about General Council, which is a permanent body of WTO. We have also talked about Trade Policy Review Board, TPRB. We have also discussed about Dispute Settlement Board. As I have told you just before, if any member country is violating any norms of WTO, the affected country can sue them in the DSB, and DSB should give a decision within 18 months. Okay, and the decision of DSB could be challenged in the appellate authority, and the decision of the appellate authority will be final as well as binding. Okay, so that's about the structure. And then we have started very important discussion on WTO, that was WTO agreements. So with this, in this itself, we have done three sessions. So first one that we have discussed is agreement on agriculture. Now, if you remember, we have talked about market access here. We have talked about tarification. We have talked about TRQ quota. Okay. Then we have discussed about domestic support. We have talked about subsidies. Domestic support means all about subsidies, right? And then we have discussed about AMS, aggregate measurement of support, which is nothing but subsidies. And I've told you aggregate measurement of support, AMS should be in limits. So AMS should be de minimis, and we have discussed the commitment of developed countries and developing countries with respect to AMS. So AMS commitments of WTO members, both developing and developed, we have seen. Okay, and then we have discussed about various types of subsidies like blue box, amber box, and green box in detail. Most of the students have this confusion, the difference between blue box and amber box. Green box, it is very simple. Those subsidies which are not trade distorting, like green signal, there is a go ahead, right? Any kind of subsidy you can give, or any amount of subsidy you can give, there is no limitation in this. For example, research and development or flood control. So these subsidies are not trade distorting or very limited impact on trade, right? So limited distortion may be there, otherwise it is not going to affect the trade. I've told you how trade distortion is actually happening because of subsidies in our discussions that we have technically done with examples. Then when it comes to amber box and blue box, both are trade distorting subsidies. But the difference is both are trade distorting, that is a similarity. So the difference is in case of amber box, AMS requirement has to be satisfied. So AMS is applicable in case of amber box, but there is an exemption from AMS in blue box. And I have told you how this exemption is coming, how developed countries actually misusing this provision, etc. Because most of the subsidies which are given by developed countries are coming under green and blue box, so they don't want to keep any limits. And I've told you example, US is giving 100 billion subsidy, but they don't have any problem. But when India is giving around 20 billion subsidy, which is 1/5 of what US is giving, there is a problem. Okay, we are actually violating WTO norms, but they are giving it without violating the WTO norms, and I hope that is clear. So then that's what agreement on agriculture. We have also talked about export subsidies. Okay, then plant varieties related cases also we have discussed over there. Then comes in the next session, we have discussed about TRIPS, trade related intellectual property rights. Okay, there we have discussed about a member country have to provide at least minimum protection to 7 intellectual property: patent, geographical indicator, copyright, trade secret, trademark, then industrial design, and layout of an integrated circuit. So when I'm talking about layout of integrated circuit, I mean to say that capacitors, resistors, transistors, etc., the connection between them, that's what you mean by the layout of integrated circuit. Okay, and we have discussed, when we discuss all these, we have discussed separately in detail. When we discussed about patent, I've told you, we have compared the Indian Patent Act and the TRIPS norms, and the recent amendment which was happened in 2005 also we have discussed. And through that amendment act, we have given product patent also. Till then we were not giving product patent. The disadvantage for giving product patent also we have discussed in terms of it affect innovation, the reasons we have discussed. So TRIPS we have done. Then we talked about TRIMS. Okay, then we have discussed about GATTs. TRIMS is related to trade related investment measures. Okay, there also we have discussed about domestic or we have discussed about tarification. We have also talked about national treatment. Okay, so then GATTs, general agreement on trade and service. This GATT is different to the previous GATT that we have discussed. We have also discussed about NAMA, non-agriculture market access. So these are the discussions that we have done with respect to WTO agreements. Very important session, because you need to know about WTO agreements, because the discussions which are going to happen in WTO, the ministerial conferences, is all about these agreements. So the issues which are going to be picked up is also related to these agreements. Okay, then we have started off with ministerial conferences. So these are the ministerial conferences: Singapore, Geneva, etc. Out of this, in the first discussion, we have completed the Singapore. We have discussed, and we have discussed the Singapore issues. Okay, so we have discussed Singapore issues. Here are the issues. First one is related to competition policy, then related to investment policy, then related to government procurement. Okay, and then trade facilitation. Out of which only this last one, trade facilitation, is what we or the developing countries accepted. The other three did not accept it. The reasons I have already told you. So if you have missed out any of these videos, if you are watching this for the first time, if you want to watch the videos, you can get in touch with me here. This is my Instagram ID, or you can join this Telegram channel. You can get all my, or this is the Telegram channel. So you can join this Telegram channel. You will get all my videos over here, or this is my Instagram ID. Okay, so you can get in touch with me there. So these two are my Facebook ID. Okay, so Facebook page. So you can get in touch with me in any of this platform. Okay, so if you want regular classes, we have the regular classes, online classes, or online classes are available with StudyIQ. The economy, history, and quantitative aptitude is already available with StudyIQ. Or to get the YouTube videos, all these are available in the Telegram channel. So now in this session, what we are going to do, so here we will be continuing with this. Now we are going to discuss about this Doha, right? So this is what we are going to discuss today. Doha development round. Why it is known as development round, I'll tell you. Okay, so we will start with the Doha Ministerial Conference. Doha Ministerial Conference 2001. Okay, so why it is known as development round? It is also known as Doha development round. Basically, it seeks to address the concerns of developing countries. That's why it is known as development round. Okay, so it seeks to address the concern of developing countries, or you can write underdeveloped countries. Both are same, developing countries or UDCs. Okay, underdeveloped countries. So developed and not developed. Not developed means underdeveloped, right? So developed and underdeveloped. We are using developing because underdeveloped is a derogatory term. Okay, so basically UDC. So when it comes to WTO, we have this categories only: developed countries, and on the other hand UDC, underdeveloped countries, and least developed countries, LDC. So these are the two categories: developed countries on one side and LDC and UDC on the other side. Okay, so now how the decisions are taken in WTO, we have I don't remember whether we have discussed this or not. See, the decisions are taken on the basis of consensus. Okay, see, it's not based on majority. If it is based on majority, who is having majority here? This group is having majority, right? So it is actually based on consensus. It is also not based on share. If it is based on share contribution, who is having maximum contribution or share? Developed countries, especially USA. Then only you can listen to US, right? So it is actually based on consensus. Very important point that you need to remember. The decisions are taken not on the basis of majority, not on the basis of share. Okay, there is no voting on the basis of share. It is based on consensus. Okay, so mainly these two blocks are there: developed countries on one side and these two together on the other side. These are the two main blocks. Now let's take up the issues which was raised in the Doha development round. First one is related to implementation issues. Okay, so implementation. See, there are some asymmetries in some of the WTO agreements, and because of that it is very difficult to implement. So half of them is almost solved, and for rest of them actually some working groups are set up to solve the issue. So that is what here I am talking about, implementation issues. Okay, so there are some asymmetries in various WTO provisions which were creating hurdles in implementing WTO norms. Okay, so half of the issues were solved, but working group has been set up for rest of them, and it is actually pending. So that's about implementation issues. Next one, very important one, mains. From this particular issue, question was asked in various years, 2011, 2013, especially in 2011, because this issue that I'm going to discuss was actually happened in 2011. Okay, so related to TRIPS. Okay, so what is TRIPS? This agreement that we have discussed already. So related to that agreement, that issues are actually coming, right? TRIPS is trade related intellectual property rights. Okay, so when we have discussed about TRIPS, we have talked about patents. Okay, now here, see, the policy towards granting compulsory licenses is liberalized. I'll tell you what you mean by compulsory license, very technical term. I'll also teach you what you mean by evergreening of patent. Patent as such we have completed, so that you already know. Okay, so here I'll be talking about these two terms, compulsory license and evergreening of patent. So here, see, what I need to write is policy towards granting, policy towards granting compulsory license was liberalized. Okay, so now what do you mean by compulsory license? See, compulsory license is applicable to certain category. For example, life-saving drugs, okay, healthcare aspects, etc. It's like this: if somebody is holding a patent, so let's say some MNC is holding a patent, okay, so it may be a US company. So if India need to produce the same drug, so if this may cost higher, okay, so if India needs to produce it, what India can do is the Patent Office of India can allow some manufacturer to produce this drug. Okay, for example, let's say there was an issue before. There is a company Bayer. Okay, so Bayer is actually an MNC. Now Bayer produced which drug? Naxaver. Okay, so this is actually a drug which is actually used for treatment of cancer. And you know how much it cost? It cost around 3 lakhs, okay, 2.8 lakh per month. Now, do you think this is affordable for poor people? Or even if you are upper middle class, still is it affordable for an upper middle class per month 3 lakh? No, it is not affordable, right? So Indians could not get this, right? So it was so difficult. So what Indian government allowed, Indian Patent Office, allowed Natco Pharma to produce this drug, okay, under compulsory licensing. And you know how much it cost after this Natco Pharma producing this drug? It cost around less than 9,000. Now this is affordable to all, and it is actually and there was a case in Supreme Court, and in Supreme Court also they couldn't win. This company cannot win because it was for life-saving purpose and it was not affordable for normal people. So in that ground we actually won the case. So it's like this Indian Patent Office can allow Natco Pharma, okay, to violate this patent. You can now produce the same drug without the consent of the original patent holder in this particular situation, but you have to pay some reasonable royalty. Otherwise, if you need to do this, you have to pay huge royalty, and that's the reason why this cost is coming around this much. See, the actual cost is less than this 9,000 only, right? When Natco Pharma is selling at 9,000, they are also getting some profit. So the actual cost of production will be very cheap, but you are selling at this rate because of that, inventory cost, right? That patent holder who's getting that cost, right? So it's so high. It will be what percentage? It will be around 3,000, 4,000 percentage. Okay, so you can see here, what is the factor of multiplication here? 300, right? So see here, if it is 2.7 lakh, so this is going to be 27,000, then so 30, right? So there's a factor of multiplication is 30 here. So 30 minus 1, that is 29. So what percentage he is getting from here? How much extra? 2,900, close to 3,000 percentage extra. Or how to calculate easily? Make it as 10,000 and make it as 3 lakh. Okay, so you can see the difference. So it's around 30 times. 30 times extra you need to pay, or 2,900 percentage extra you need to pay. So is that desirable? No, especially for these kinds. See, for luxury it's okay, but for this kinds of thing like life-saving drugs for cancer, etc., it is not desirable. Okay, so that's why it was actually accepted. So let me write down here what do you mean by compulsory license. Under CL, the patent office of a company, member country, the patent office of a member country can permit production or sale of a product covered by a patent holder by another company, okay, covered by patent by another company. So here what Indian Patent Office did, permitted Natco Pharma. Okay, the patent is originally holding, who's holding? This Bayer. This company is originally, the original patent holder is actually Bayer, but Natco Pharma was asked to, produce this, okay, for the production. So the production, another company, okay, without consent of patentee, that means Bayer here, okay. So without consent of patentee, by paying reasonable royalty to the patent. So upon payment of reasonable royalty to the patentee, okay. See, the protecting public health, that is one of the most important reason why compulsory license is used. And how much royalty was given here? 6% royalty was given. Otherwise, you see here, it's around 2,900. That much was the difference, okay. So now 6% is actually given from this 9,000. So now that you can calculate, hardly less than, that's close to 500 rupee, okay. Otherwise, how much they used to get? This difference is what they used to get, okay. So I hope this is clear. Now, what do you mean by evergreening of patent? If you remember, I've told you after 20 years, the life of that patent will be expired. So it is actually given protection for 20 years. So after 20 years, if the original patent holder, if they want to retain the patent, what he will do, what he can do, he can make some minor modification, okay, or he can claim that this drug could be used for some other disease also. So like here it was for cancer. So he can come up with a different property by saying that this drug could be used for some other disease also, so that he can extend the patent and he can keep on doing this. That's what you mean by evergreening of patent, okay. So that is also, we are making some restrictions for that, because we have prevented this evergreening of patent in certain cases, and because of that USTR actually put India on priority watch list as per special 301, okay. This we will discuss later. So we were put in the priority watch list by USTR under special 301, okay. So because we prevented certain evergreening, okay. Evergreening this by making some minor modifications. What can you do, right? It is only for extending the patent, okay, or you are just claiming some other property by saying that this could be used for some other disease also after 20 years, okay. So that is not desirable, okay. So here, which one here what we have discussed is related to life-saving drug, okay. So under which grounds we won the case in Supreme Court? Because it was not affordable to poor, right? So after this also US actually put us in a priority watch list. So next one, next point. So we have done 2, right? So third one, scope of geographical indicators to be extended. So this is the second one, right? Scope of geographical indicators to be extended. So if you remember, when we discussed about geographical indicators, at that time itself I have told you most of the geographical indicators are actually given to developed countries, and mostly for the various alcohol or wines, right? And I've told you champagne, tequila, scotch, etc. All these are place names. Geographical indicators are all related to place names mostly. Okay, so this I hope most of you don't know. Some of you at least don't know that this scotch, champagne, tequila, etc. are place names. Now, if you see, developed countries don't have too much to claim for geographical indicators. They only have these good wines, right? Nothing else is there. But developing countries like India and all, there are so much of things to claim for geographical indicators. So the scope of geographical indicators to be extended, and after that a lot of geographical indicators and all those videos you can get in StudyIQ itself, that different people have done so much of videos for every time when new geographical indicator is actually announced. Okay, so next is related to agreement on agriculture. So agriculture, under this actually agriculture subsidies to be abolished by developed countries. So if you remember, when we discussed about agreement on agriculture, we have discussed about the commitment of developed countries to reduce the agriculture subsidies to 5%. Okay, so 5% of their agriculture output, and developing countries 10% of the agriculture output. So developing countries 10%, 10% for UDC, and 5% up to 5% for developed countries. Now the demand is this 5% should be reduced to 0. Okay, so developed countries should completely ignore or eliminate the subsidies related to the agriculture products. Okay, so agriculture subsidies, let me write here, agriculture subsidies to be abolished by developed countries. Okay, now next is NAMA, non-agriculture market access. We have discussed what is NAMA. These are related to non-agricultural items like petroleum products, etc. So here, and at that time I've talked about a Swiss formula, right? So what was Swiss formula? Those countries having larger tariff will reduce at a larger rate, and smaller tariff will reduce at a smaller rate, right? For example, country A and country B. Country A is having 50% tariff and country B having, let's say, 25% tariff. Now, there is one way of reducing the subsidies. Both will reduce by 50%. If both will reduce by 50%, what will happen? This will become half. New tariff will become 25%. This will also become half, let's say 12.5. Okay, or let's take it as 20%. Here it is 20%, so that will get easily. So this is going to be 10%. So this was 50, this was 20. So both will reduce by 50%. The second way in which you can reduce is both should be equally, equal. Let's say we will say this will be 10, this will also be 10. So here from 50 to 10, 40 reduction is there. Here 20 to 10, small reduction is there. But what is Swiss formula? Under Swiss formula, those who are having larger subsidy, like A here, will have a larger commitment on reduction of tariff, let's say 50%, and B will have smaller commitment, that means let's say 25%. So in this case, what will be the new tariff? So 50% of 50, that is around 25. So this is a new tariff for A. What about this? 25% of 20, that is 5%, so 5% reduction, so this is going to be 15%. So you can see here the difference, right? So this is what you mean by Swiss formula. Now here, what these three countries, Argentina, Brazil and India, they modified the Swiss formula. ABI, Argentina, Brazil, India. Okay, they modified this Swiss formula. Okay, so here the tariff to be reduced to the principle of less than full reciprocity. So the tariff should be reduced. Tariff should be reduced on the principle of less than full reciprocity. Okay, so what do you mean by less than full reciprocity? Here, see, there is it is not Swiss formula. Swiss formula is actually modified. How modified? See, let's suppose what they are saying is developed countries, you do first, then we will reciprocate it. But when we reciprocate it, we won't reciprocate it fully. Like let's suppose you are doing 30%, we will not do it 30%, we will do 20%. So what we are actually doing is we will do the 2/3 of what you do. That's why all the calculation now is going to be 2/3. It is very easy to calculate the commitment. So here you don't want to have any confusion. If you know the contribution or the reduction commitment of developed countries, it is very easy to calculate the developing. What you need to do is just follow the 2/3 norm, right? So if you are saying developed countries is, let's say, 36%, you will be reduced to 24%. So 2/3 is the reduction commitment for you. So it's not exactly like Swiss formula. It is actually a modified Swiss formula. Why it is less than full reciprocity? First, the developed countries will do. Then we will also do. We will reciprocate what you're doing. But when we reciprocate, we won't reciprocate completely, because we can't completely reciprocate. We can't do 100% of what you're doing, right? So we will do close to that. That is what you mean by less than full. We won't do fully. We will do slightly less than fully. That is what you mean by this 2/3. So if you do 30%, we do 20%. If you do 60%, we will do 40%. So if you just remember this value 2/3 and the developed countries commitment, you can simply understand what you mean by the developing countries commitment. So 2/3 means what percentage? 66% is what the developing countries commitment. So first developed countries will do, then developing countries will follow. They will reciprocate, but when they reciprocate, they will not, and in fact they cannot, and it is not desirable also to reciprocate fully. So they will reciprocate less than full. That means close to full, slightly lesser than full. That's what you mean by the 2/3 provision or the 66%. So here don't want to have any confusion. This ABI is Argentina, Brazil and India. Okay, so that's about this. Now next is S&D. See, S&D is special and differentiated product. I have already told you what you mean by this in the previous discussion on agreement on agriculture. So what is this? Some unilateral concessions are actually given to developing countries and least developed countries. Okay, so that has to be made precise, effective and operational. That is the next requirement. Then next one related to labor issues. Labor issues. See, the one which I want to discuss here is labor issues should not be taken here in WTO. You don't enlarge the scope into all these, because for that International Labor Union is there. Okay, so you take up this labor issues over there, and you don't use this labor issues and environmental issues for your protectionist treatment. Okay, so for protectionist purpose, see, protectionist purpose, you can say that it is environmentally not clear. Okay, so it is affecting the animals. Okay, cruelty to animals. Okay, phytosanitary measures. So under different grounds you can actually go for protectionist measures. So you can prevent import by using the protectionist measures. You can say that it is for example, if you take leather shoe, how can you prevent import? You can say that we don't tolerate cruelty against animals. Okay, similarly on phytosanitary grounds you can reject imports. So that's what you mean by protectionist measures under this case. Okay, so you should not use labor and environmental issues to the protectionist measures in case of protectionist measures. So labor issues to be taken up under the aegis of International Labor Organization should be taken up by ILO, and labor and environmental issues should not be used for protectionist purpose. Then Singapore issues, as we have already discussed. So next, this point is Singapore issues to be taken up in the 6th Ministerial Conference after the finalization of Doha round. Okay, so Singapore issues to be taken up in the 6th Ministerial Conference after the finalization of Doha round. So you finalize Doha round, and then Singapore issues completely need to be addressed. What are the Singapore issues? Competition policy is there, investment policy is there, government procurement is there, trade facilitation is there, that we have discussed in the previous video. So then duty-free, quota-free market access. Duty-free, quota-free market access. See, you duty-free, quota-free market access to be provided to whom? To LDCs. Okay, by whom? Developed countries, and some unilateral concessions by developing countries also. Okay, so some concessions should be given to LDCs by some unilateral concessions should be given to LDCs by UDC, developing countries, and duty-free, quota-free complete access should be given to LDCs by the developed countries. That's what I mean by this particular one. Then next point, cotton subsidies to be eliminated by US and EU. So cotton subsidy to be eliminated by US and EU. Okay, Then one related to GATT's, General Agreement on Trade and Service. So if you remember, we have discussed this in detail. So job visa policy to be liberalized by the developed countries. Job visa policy to be liberalized by developed countries. So where we discuss this? We have discussed this in GATT's, right? General Agreement on Trade and Service. 4 modes we have discussed: mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4. In mode 4, we have talked about movement of people, right? And then I have discussed about example of job visas, etc. So this is related to mode 4. Okay, mode 4 that we have discussed, which is related to job visa, that policy has to be liberalized. Okay, so all these are developing countries concerns, and these are India's concerns also. So when we talk about Doha development round, these are the issues that need to be discussed. And why it is still stuck? Because these are the same issues almost discussed in Uruguay round, and without concluding that, Uruguay round, Dangle draft came and WTO established. So the issues has been not solved in Uruguay round. They are forced to, enter into the new organization. They are forced to sign the Marrakesh Agreement. So the issues have not been solved, but there was a provision that the developing countries' issues will be addressed in future. But that's never happened, and that's the reason why now it got stuck. The same issues have been picked up. So all these are the issues by India also. All these are the issues of developing countries in general. So I hope you got a complete clarity about Doha development round. You are definitely going to get a mains question from WTO. Most probably the question will be asked from Doha development round. So I hope you have enough content now, so you will be in a position to write better answer. If you have any doubt in any of the discussions that we have done so far, you can always get in touch with me. This is my Instagram ID, or you can join the Telegram channel. So that's about the session. I hope you understood everything that we have discussed today. If you have any doubt in any of the videos that we have discussed so far, you can get in touch with me here. That's my Instagram ID, okay? Or you can join the Telegram channel. You will get all my videos over there. Everything is there. Or you can see here, this is a Telegram channel, or this is the Instagram ID. These two are my Facebook page. You can get in touch with me in any of this. If you want to learn economy with me, or history with me, or general studies, any subjects, you can, if you need regular classes, you can get in touch with me, or the online classes are available with StudyIQ. You will get all those classes. Still, you will get my YouTube videos in this Telegram channel. Okay. So I hope you understood everything that we have discussed. So see you guys. Thank you.